Hey everyone, this is Neon Polygons, and today I want to do a video on what I consider the rarest commercially released gaming console ever. And that is the Panasonic FZ-21 standard kiosk unit, which, is a long name, but it's basically known as the consoleized version of the Panasonic 3DO M2, which was meant to be the successor to the original 3DO that came out in 1993. Now, I say it's the rarest commercially released console because this console actually did come out in retail. What a lot of people don't realize is when they see this, especially this unit you're seeing right here, they generally think that the 3DO only came out in prototype form or was only shown as like a mold in like the trade shows, but the unit actually did come out, and they did actually use the mold that was intentionally meant for the M2 video game version. The backstory of this is basically, in a nutshell, when Panasonic or their parent company bought the rights to the M2 technology from the 3DO company, they basically decided almost at the last minute that, hey, for us to kind of release this as a video game platform, it's not a good idea. We'd be coming in mid-cycle and be competing with the user base, or trying to gain user base from the PlayStation and Nintendo 64. And by the time 1998 or 97 rolled around, that was, a pretty tall task. So Panasonic made the move to say, hey, look, let's use the technology in our other forms of business or other verticals of business, such as in specifically in enterprise and retail. And so what they did was they used essentially the chipset of the 3D-ROM-2 in other integrations. So you could see it in ATMs, you would see it in other kiosk units or media players. But interestingly enough, the original, or one of the original molds, was used as the mold for the release kiosk unit, which is what you see here. Now, there are two versions of the 3DO kiosk. There is the FZ-21 and the FZ-35. The FZ-35 is the more advanced version, as it has a DVD player and actually has a hard drive and more RAM, whereas the 3DO M2 the version that you see here, the FZ-21, is only a 4x CD player, or 4x CD player. But it looks sleeker, obviously, than the FZ-35. One of the things I also noticed is that it actually has like a memory card slot, which the FZ-35 didn't have. So you can tell this is clearly, its original intent was meant to be a video game platform. So it did get released. The only way to have gotten these back in the day, when Panasonic decided to release it, was in 1998. The only way to have gotten it was through direct order through Panasonic's enterprise sales teams. So, which that basically meant was, as a normal person, as a normal consumer, yes, you could have purchased it, but you probably would not have known about it, because the only communications about the release to this was specifically on a B2B purpose. So you would only see it in press releases to other commercial businesses. You would have been called by a direct sales rep from Panasonic. So these units, while they were released, it wasn't known to the public. And so most of the people who did buy these for basically media kiosk purposes, they never knew that this thing was actually ever a video game platform. So essentially they would have bought this thing, they would have used it in their store or show floor, and they would have used it for a significant amount of time. And eventually, again, Panasonic would have like a new updated version come the early 2000s. So these would have basically been phased out by the people who own these, and not even have realized that, hey, wait a minute, this was actually a video game platform. So that is why it's pretty rare, because yes, there are probably a significant amount of these that were actually sold out there, but the people who did own them unfortunately didn't know, or that number one, they were a video game platform, or number two, that they never bought them with the intent of using it ever as a video game platform in the first place. So when these got basically chucked out, that was it, end the story for their unit. And when I say there was quite a few of these out there, I don't mean in the sense of like, you know, probably even in the thousands, because again, these were sold for B2B purposes. So that the number of these units actually, you know, manufactured and put into, you know, out there for sale was probably a much lower number versus what you would probably have if this had been sold to you know, normal retail end consumers. So a lot of people are trying to scoop these up right now, and you know, it's quite difficult considering the situation trying to even find them. And again, you got to remember, like, again, the low unit count, the likelihood of the only people having bought them was being B2B. And again, when this is the model that probably a lot of collectors would want, only because it's the one that actually looks like the 3D-ROM-2 that was actually publicized in video game magazines in 1995. So just kind of want to show you the cool things, like when you actually click on it, that's how you open it. It's actually like a side release, as you just saw what I did. Most people thought these were push down buttons, but they weren't. Now, these things only rarely appear on secondary auction sites like eBay and Yahoo Auctions Japan. You know, I probably would say you would have a better chance of seeing the FZ-35 model versus the FZ-21, even though the FZ-35 is actually the more versatile unit that can actually, you know, play the games that were, you know, put out there, like the ISOs that were actually put out there, whereas this can only, at the moment, only play one piece of software that I know of. And, you know, thankfully, there's a strong community out there. You may have seen the videos from Video Game Esoterica, where they're trying to kind of get software playable on this platform, and so that's fantastic to hear. And I hope that they do it, because not for the sake of just even getting it to play on FZ-21, but because I think there is a lot of history behind this platform that would be. It's really meaningful to a lot of, you know, not just Gen X and you know, millennial gamers who fantasized and grew up, you know, hearing about this mythical console, but also because of historically what this console would have meant had it had been released, and where its legacy, where this, you know, its eventual legacy of where it was like integrated into. So, long story short, you know, again, you don't really see this model, the FZ-21, very often. Like, I'd say very rare. You see it very rarely on secondary auction sites like eBay and Yahoo Auctions Japan. Now, if you had tried to gotten one of these back in the mid to late 2000s, right, you probably could have gotten these for maybe around, you know, $400 to like $1,000, right? 5 years ago, there was an auction on Yahoo on eBay, and it was for two of them. It was for the normal retail version that you see here, and the dev unit that is basically the same thing, but it's white. The dev unit actually sold for about $4 something-ish thousand, whereas the retail version sold for, you know, pretty close to like 7 to 8, and that was an American, or sorry, it was a British eBay auction. Fast forward a few years later, I would say the average going price of the normal retail version was, generally speaking, in the range of around, you know, $4,000 to $5,000. However, recently, I probably would say, you know, the value of the 3D-ROM-2 has just completely skyrocketed, where you now see an auction on Yahoo Auctions Japan, and essentially the buy it now price, I believe, is 350,000 yen, which kind of equivalates to $35,000 around there. And now you most recently saw on eBay, there is a unit that's being sold for $50,000, buy it now. So obviously the people who are searching for this, you know, it's a very small select few, but I can tell you, everyone that is searching for one of these, they've been searching for a very, very long time. You know, this could almost be like a decade-long search trying to get one of these units. And the people who are selling them, they are now finally realizing what they have, which essentially is one of the most valuable, if not rarest, gaming consoles ever released. I almost consider it like a closure to my gaming collecting experience, because this was essentially, at the end of the day, this was it. This was my finale collection. This was my final piece that I've been probably seeking as a kid, as, you know, someone who grew up, you know, with the romanticizing of E3 1995. I will never forget it. This console is probably the finale of what we were all looking forward to in that generation of gaming, of PlayStation, Saturn, and 64, and which would have, you know, culminated to the release of the 3DO-M2. So for a lot of the collectors out there, you know, there's plenty of videos that are already showing us, you know, what the platform is like, what the FZ-21 is like, what the FZ-35 is like. I kind of want to kind of just do a quick video, I guess, on my personal pursuit of this platform, and kind of relaying out there, like, yeah, it was not easy trying to find one of these, and it is, you know, basically you have to constantly, you know, be on the hunt for them. You know, a lot of rumors out there that you should be looking at car dealerships in Southwest America, because there are still dealers out there that are actually using this kiosk unit. There's also kind of rumors out there about, essentially, there is still old stock at a Panasonic warehouse in New Jersey. If you try to go to do this via the more public, you know, means such as like an eBay or Yahoo Auctions Japan, you will be waiting. You will be searching for a very long time, and you will be competing with a lot of people who are equally doing the same. So, do I think it's worth it? I think for the people who are 3DO-M2 fans and collectors, yeah, it's totally worth it, because this is kind of, like, as I mentioned, a highlight piece. It's kind of almost, in a way, you know, kind of consider it like a piece of closure, in a way, for most people who obtain these. But with that said, I just kind of want to show off the unit. It's, in my opinion, it is one of the most gorgeous industrial designs ever for a video game platform, and I wish it had been released, because a lot of people would have gotten the chance to experience this platform, good or bad. You know, we're always going to be left wondering a big what if had this console been released. And then just look at it, man. Like, compare this to the design of the PlayStation N64. It just looks sleeker. It looks more mature. It looks like, yes, you know, it's huge, but it has aged significantly well in terms of a design of a platform. You know, with that said, you know, if you have any questions or want to learn more about the 3DO-M2, there's some great videos by Video Game Esoterica, who I consider to be the de facto #1 source about the 3DO-M2, the hardware, the software, the history, like everything. But if you do have any questions about or comments about, you know, I guess, my personal story about my 3DO-M2 that you see here, which I'm so incredibly grateful to have, feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks again, guys, for watching. Catch you all again soon.